Hola, minasan! Welcome back for another round of tabletop deck building. I'm still trying to decide how this goes, but today we're doing Magic the Gathering. Gonna take a look at my Sythis Harvest Hand deck. So, for those of you who are not aware, Sythis Harvest Hand originally was my very first deck, commander deck. So, um, acquaintances of mine uh, at a game store, hobby store in Somerville. Uh, they well, they were starting up a new store. They were basically branching out a new sister store dedicated to tabletop gaming. And I met the co-owner of that store because I was curious about the magic cards because I have a constructed deck that is mono white. It's a bird deck, and I was hoping to see what new birds may have came out after 13 years. I was just curious about it, and I found out from them, the employees there, about this commander thing, and I started playing catch up on this whole commander and such, and I was surprised where it came from and so on. And basically, it kind of drew me back in, but not fully yet. I was kind of like John Wick, in John Wick, people would go up to John Wick, be like, "Are you back, John?" John Wick's be like, "I don't know." And so I decided to try out a commander deck. So I built my first deck, which was called Ishimaru Hound of Konda. Is it Ishimaru or Isamaru? I completely forgot. But it was the Hound of Konda. And my deck consisted of angels and spirits. It was just straight up mono white. And basically, I gave it a try. And I liked it. Considering that was my first deck, everybody was kind of surprised how well I did, especially being out of the whole loop for 13 years. Because I had stopped playing Magic when 2010 came out, and the Kamigawa the Kamigawa block was the only thing that interested me. Although I missed out on Betrayers, but nevertheless, I stopped it for 13 years. I hadn't touched a single Magic anything, like like it was a dropped habit. But when I learned more about Commander, it was like, oh well, I got all these cards here that haven't seen any type of play, so I'll play them. So I made Isamaru, and much to everyone's surprise, for my very first Commander, playthrough, I finished second in the pod, um, with Hound of Konda, and so I kind of got drawn in. And what happened is that because the store had just opened, they started displaying singles on their first set of singles, and one single I found was this card called Sythis, and it enticed me. Saying it was very enticing what she could do, so I bought the card. And the owner was nice enough and introduced me to Sanctum. What was that card again? Sanctum Weaver? Hold on. I got it right here. Yeah, Sanctum Weaver. He introduced me to Sanctum Weaver. And that's when I started deconstructing the Isamaru deck. I started, removing the angels and everything and started making it a white-green deck. Which many of you, for those who've been around, if you've seen any previous videos, I do have a couple of previous videos covering that. But nevertheless, my first ever commander deck completely changed. This majority of the spirits were gone. All the angels were gone. A lot of basically it's like a completely different deck now. I was picking up the commander precon decks that were white and green. To be able to get access to more enchantment creatures, and it became a much more bigger focus than I could have imagined. So once I finally got the two cards that I was really looking for, and gunning for, and got them into this deck. The past 2 weekends now that I've been playing Commander, I'm starting to win. I'm winning games now. Uh, Basically, this Sythis deck is, I wouldn't say it's frustrating for everybody because they're top tier players I'm dealing with, so they're handling it, but Sythis has such a high attrition rate, say such a strong attrition that it can outlast everybody, and that's how I've been winning. Now the losses that I've been getting with this current deck, this current update, was due to two factors. One, board wipes. I was hit with collateral and I was struggling to get it off the ground. The other one was a card called Uncharted Haven that I played. When I played Uncharted Haven, instead of declaring green, because I had green spells, I declared white, and the next 5 draws were all plains, and not a single forest came out, or any card that can give me green. By the time I finally got my first land that could produce green, it was already too late, and my opponent, who was playing a dedicated Lord of the Rings deck, whacked me with Sauron into oblivion. So that was a quick upgrade I had to do, and I got rid of Uncharted Haven. I think it was called Uncharted Haven. Well, I got rid of it because I can't do a 50-50 guesswork on that. I needed cards to improve, so I put in Thriving Grove today. So let me walk you through the whole deck, and I'm gonna explain what they do and what the objective is going to be. Basically, every deck's gotta have how you say, an end game. But that's what's tricky about Sythis, because I don't have the best way I could describe it is that I'm just basically hitting by everybody with creatures. You'll see soon enough. So here's my commander, Sythis Harvest Hand. Not sure why this here is Sythis Harvest Hand. I do apologize. I'm having a major problem here. There we go. That's a little better. I see. Alright, that's fine. There we go. Alright, that's a little better. Yeah, that's a little better. Sorry about that. That was a lighting issue there. Sythis Harvest Hand, my commander. What was funny is that I saw a YouTube video where I forgot what the video was called again, but they were like, these are the commanders we hate, and one of them hated Sythis, because of all the crazy hand drawing. But because the person pointed out that all the Sythis decks do the same thing. When I heard what they were doing, it's like, oh, well, my deck does something different, so I don't have to worry about being samey. But what Sythis does is whenever I cast an enchantment spell, I gain 1 life and draw a card. So that's what drew me to playing her in the first place, making her my commander, because she's a 1 green. She's a green white. That's all it costs. 2 mana, and from there, it's like everybody now, over in Somerville, like, oh yeah, you're gonna play a white, then a green, and then Sythis. And it's very predictable, and there's nothing they could do about it. No matter how many times they kill Sythis keeps coming out. So among my non-basic lands, I got Thriving Grove, as I said. Thriving Grove enters the battlefield tapped. As Thriving Grove enters the battlefield, I choose a color other than green, and I just tap the mana, and I can tap for green and the chosen color. there's no reason not to have it in this deck. It's fine. Just call white, and I could tap for green and white at will. I wouldn't recommend. I wouldn't recommend it. Well, one of the players is like, you shouldn't be playing this. It's not a good card. But you know what? For this deck, it's fine. Maybe for other decks, I understand. But for this deck, declaring white is not really that bad, and it gets me to Sythis and any other colors that I need. Blossoming Sands enters the battlefield tapped. When Blossoming Sands enters the battlefield, I gain a life, and I could tap for green or white. Then there's Brush Land, in which it gives me one generic mana, one colorless mana, and if I tap, I could get a green or white, but I'll take one damage, which means absolutely nothing because this deck is life gaining. You'll see soon enough. It means nothing to me. Standard staple command tower. Add one mana of any color of the commander's color identity, which is white or green. Then I have overgrown farmland. When overgrown farmland enters the battlefield tapped, unless I control two or more other lands, and it'll give me green and white. So if I have two lands, yeah, just two lands. It could be any land, any two lands, and I don't have to tap it when it comes into play. Now this one I added in before the weekend playthrough. Reliquary Tower. This was due to the fact this is a new edition. Prior to this past weekend, what happened was that I was having draw issues in a positive way. I was getting a lot of cards, but I was getting more than the maximum hand size of 7, and I was finding myself having a hard time not chucking out, not preventing discarding the cards, and it was very hard to maintain. So it was I guess you could say it's a negative positive. I don't know, that sounds weird. It was positive, but in a negative way. There we go. So I added Reliquary Tower along with 2 other cards to deal with my hand size. So when I have no maximum hand size, and then I could tap for generic mana, which is fine. The important thing is that I don't have to worry about hand size, and it worked over the weekend. It worked because I was always having a hand size of 8 and 9, and because I had Reliquary Tower out along with a couple other cards, I didn't have to worry about discarding at the end of the turn. I just held on to that hand, that extra card in that hand, and that actually helped me out. In the long run of attrition. Next up is Temple Garden. This is a forest plains land, as you see on the type, so it counts as a forest and a plains. I tap for green or white. As Temple Garden enters the field, enters the battlefield, you may pay 2 life. If you don't, Temple Garden enters the battlefield tapped. So this is what is called the shock land, which is basically play land, you take 2 damage without having to tap, put into play tapped. It's based, the name comes from Shock, the card Shock, classic red spell called Shock, which deals 2 damage to target player. Again, the 2 damage doesn't mean anything to me at all. Like, it's nothing. So I could just drop it into play, take the 2 damage, and then before I know it, I get my 2 life back. Temple of Plenty. When it enters the battlefield tap, and when I do, I get to scry 1, so I get to look at the top card. If I don't like it, I send it to the bottom. If I like it, I keep it, and I could draw it out. And it gives me white and green on the tap. Then there's Fortified Village. If Fortified Village enters the battlefield, I can reveal a forest card or plains card from my hand, and if I do, it doesn't tap. It comes into play untapped, and then I get to tap for green and white, which is no problem because it doesn't really matter if I expose a forest or a plain. Everybody knows I'm playing forest and plain because of Sythis and the commander colors. Tranquil Expanse. It enters the play tap. That's it. And it gives me green and white on the tap, which is fine. Bountiful Promenade. Bountiful Prawn enters the battlefield tap unless you have 2 or more opponents, which is no problem in a pod because you're up against 3 opponents. So I never have to tap. And I get green and white on the tap. So I have a lot of green and white tapping cards, which is very, very important in commander decks. Then I have Canopy Vista, another forest plane land, as you can see, and it lets me tap green and white. When it enters the battlefield tap, unless I control 2 or more basic lands. So it's similar to the other card. And since I'll have 2 basic lands on the field, I don't have to worry about tapping it. Okay, now we're coming to the enchantment creatures. Eidolon of Blossoms. It's got what is called Constellation. Whenever Eidolon of Blossoms or another enchantment enters the battlefield under my control, I draw a card. So there's my card drawing engine, one of many. Next up is Arasta of the Endless Web. It's a legendary enchantment creature, Spider. It has reach. Whenever an opponent casts an instant or sorcery spell, I create a 1/2 green spider creature token with reach. This is actually a pretty big deal because this kind of controls my opponents as to whether they want to cast sorceries and instants and grant me a creature. So there's a lot of decks that's going to play instants and sorceries. And it's very important for me to also keep an eye on that because 1/2 green creature with reach helps me protect myself from flying creatures that many of my opponents would play. Next up is Nyxborn Behemoth. I should have saved that for last. He was originally in my beast deck, but I felt he was better off in my enchantment deck because he's a 10/10 beefy, and he's an enchantment creature, beast type. This spell costs X less to cast, where X is the total mana value of non-creature enchantments you control. Trample. For 1 generic mana and 1 green, I can sacrificing another enchantment. Nyxborn Behemoth gains indestructible intent until end of turn, so I could turn him into a tramply indestructible monster on 10/10. And it's and casting this is a lot is very easy because I do have a lot of non-creature enchantments in which I can gain. I could get Nyxborn Behemoth out really, really easily. Here's Sanctum Weaver that I was talking about. This was the card the owner hooked me up with. It's an enchantment creature Dryad. All I have to do is tap it, and I get to add X mana of any one color where X is the number of enchantments I control. So if I have 5 enchantments out there, which also includes enchantment creatures, I get 5 mana of one specific color. So I could say green or white, and I get that. I probably could get other colors. I'm not sure. But I have come across commander decks where I was handed a a blue card and I couldn't play because I didn't have blue mana, access to blue mana. So I guess that's the case there. This one is Goshentai of Boundless Figure, legendary enchantment creature, Shrine. This is very important. The Shrine type is extremely important. It has trample. At the beginning of my end step, I could pay 1 generic mana, and when I do, I put a +1/+1 counter on a target shrine for each shrine I control. Keep that in mind. +1/+1 counter. Keep that in mind because you're gonna start seeing where this deck is going. But the shrine, being a shrine type, was very important, and I had to make sure that I got myself some shrine type creatures and cards because you'll see because of what they can do. Dryad of the Elysian Grove. This is a single that I got my hands on. And what it does is an enchantment creature, nymph. I may play an additional land on each of my turns. So if I play green, I could play, if I play forest, I could play another forest, or I could play plains, and so on. Lands I control are every basic land type in addition to their other types. So it's a big time mana boost. Very, very good card. And it's only 3 mana total to drop. Pretty powerful stuff there. Helps me with my mana ramp. Next up is Destiny Spinner. I threw this one in because as an enchantment creature, it's a human. And here's what this thing does. Creature enchantments and spells. Creatures and enchantment spells I control can't be countered. So every single creature spell and every single enchantment spell I have can never be countered by blue or any other counter card. For three mana, one green, I can target land I control. The target land you control becomes an XX elemental creature with trample and haste until end of turn, where X is the number of enchantments I control, but it still lands. So I could turn my forest and plains into, let's say, a 5/5 creature, a trampling creature with haste, because I have 5 enchantments out there, and that includes Destiny Spinner. So just Destiny Spinner alone, I could have a 1/1 trample hasting creature. But yeah, my lands can become creatures until the end of the turn. So with the right amount of mana, being that it's 4, if I can generate, say, 12, I can make 3 lands creatures with trampling haste. It's pretty crazy. Then this one I got recently, and I had been looking for this for the longest time. This is Weaver of Harmony. This is another enchantment creature, Snake Druid. What it says is that other enchantment creatures I control get +1/+1. For 1 green and tapping Weaver, I can copy target activated or triggered ability you control from an enchantment source. You may choose new targets for the copy. Mana abilities can't be targeted. So basically, with Weaver of Harmony, I can basically copy any of my enchantments. Let's say Sythis. I tap it, I copy Sythis's ability. Now I could draw 2 cards and gain 2 life every time I play an enchantment. So I can actually increase my hand size. Or if I play, if I have Sanctum Weaver, I can use that ability twice over and generate a crap sack ton of mana, which could help me with all my card drops. This one is called Generous Visitor. It's just a regular creature. There's nothing to it. It's a spirit type. Whenever you cast an enchantment spell, you put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. So any creatures I have on there, whenever I play an enchantment spell, I get a +1/+1 counter for it. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward, and it's very cheap too because it's only 1 mana, which is pretty good. Next up is Blossom Prancer, another spirit type. So as you can see, I still have my spirit type creatures, which were for my spirit type creatures, because I wanted the spirit type deck, but I couldn't get that whole full spirit focus because the enchantment creature types were just way too focused. You know, it's crazy. But what Blossom Prancer does is it has reach, so I could protect myself. It's 4/4. When Blossom Prancer enters the battlefield, I look at the top 5 cards of my library, and I may reveal a creature or enchantment card from among them and put it into my hand, which is excellent. It's a creature or an enchantment. I could get, you know what I'm saying. And I put the rest on the bottom of my library in a random order. However, if I didn't put a card into my hand this way, I could gain 4 life. Now, what's great about this card is that it's a you may effect. I don't have to reveal a creature and an enchantment. I can actually ignore the creature or the enchantment that's in that draw and send them to the bottom of the pile and take the 4 life instead. That's actually very important for if should I have the option, if I should get a specific card, which you'll see down the line. So keep that in mind as well. Quirion Elves, a very classic Mirage. Is that Mirage? Yeah, this is from Mirage. Classic card here. When you play Quirion Elves, choose a color, which will be white. I could tap it and add 1 mana of the chosen color to my mana pool. Play this as a mana source, which will be white. And I can also tap for green to add to the mana pool. So this is kind of like it's actually pretty cheap for what it does. It's 2 mana cost. I favorite this over the Quirion Elves because over the Llanowar Elves, because the Quirion Elves can give me the white, the source to white mana, which will be very helpful if I'm having mana issues. Next up is Kami of Transience. This guy's crazy if done right. It's a spirit type creature. Again, another spirit. Love them spirit types. It's got trample. Whenever you cast an enchantment spell, put a +1/+1 counter on Kami of Transience. At the beginning of each end step, if an enchantment was put into your graveyard from the battlefield this turn, you may return common transients from your graveyard to your hand. So it's a great way to get to retrieve a card. It's a great card recovery. But what I loved about this was that when I played my pod over the weekend, this was the only card I was attacking with. He was the only creature that I was attacking with, and he basically took care of everybody. He just literally wiped everybody out. You'll understand why as long as you keep +1/+1 counters in the back of your mind. You'll see why. Herald of the Pantheon. This is another creature, Centaur Shaman. So what he does is enchantment spells I cast cost 1 generic mana less to cast, and whenever I cast an enchantment spell, I gain a life. So this is great because it makes pretty much all my enchantment creatures one mana cheaper to drop, especially Nyxborn Behemoth, especially the regular enchantments, because many of them are clocking in at like 1 generic mana or 2 generic mana, so it makes it quick and easy for me to really pay and drop. Very good on the ramp. Okay, now we're coming to the regular enchantments. This is Holden of Life's Web. I really fought hard to find this card to get my hands on this card. It's a legendary enchantment. It's a shrine. So again, this is the second shrine that you're seeing here now. At the beginning of your upkeep, you put a 1/1 colorless spirit creature token onto the battlefield for each shrine I control. So the first Goshen Tai you saw is a shrine type. This is a shrine type, which means that at the beginning of my upkeep, I could put 2 spirit 1/1 spirit creature tokens. They're colorless, but I get to put 2 1/1 spirit creature tokens at the start of my upkeep. And what's great about Holden of Life's Web is that I don't have to pay anything. It's in the upkeep. It's just an auto upkeep, and they just keep ramping up along the way. Pretty great way to get creature for me to load up on creatures. Kodama's Reach from the Kamigawa block. Classic card there. Sorcery, Arcane. I don't really care for Splice onto Arcane. Very, very weird effect. Search your library for 2 basic land cards. Reveal those cards and put one into play tapped and the other into your hand and shuffle your library. Great land fetch. Excellent land fetch card. 3 mana, which is nothing for with regards to this deck here. But it's a great way to land ramp and have an extra card. In fact, if you haven't even played your land, then you get to get 2 drops on a single turn. Now this one is a very, very classic card. You could see by the old text. The card got errata. This is Untamed Wilds. I picked this one over Rampant Growth and the other fetch cards. Well, so I'm gonna read you the old text here. Search your library for any 1 basic land and put it directly into play. This does not count towards your 1 land per turn limit. Reshuffle your library afterwards. So if you're, that's how it was back in the days, the way they word these things out. But the reason why I favor Untamed Wilds is because I don't have to tap my land. My land does not come into play tap. Just drop it in and it's ready for me to get mana. That's why I favor Untamed Wilds over Rampant Growth and the others. The only reason I chose Kodama's Reach is because I could get 2 lands out of my deck. But Untamed Wilds gives me an untapped land, and that's a big difference in terms of getting help. Next up is Naturalize, the Disenchant of Green. Very simple. You just destroy target artifact or enchantment. Very straightforward, instant card. Very good. Very good. Especially if I'm up against decks with enchantment creatures, I could get rid of the creature very easily. This one I picked. It's a little on the unique side, but it's actually a pretty good card. I think this is a good card for Commander, and I do recommend it if you're able to fit it. It's called Crumble. It's only 1 green mana. It's an instant speed. You bury target artifact. That artifact's controller gains an amount of life equal to its total casting cost. So it's basically a Swords to Plowshares, but for artifacts. And the reason why I say this is good is because you could get rid of Sol Ring. Pretty much any of the more dangerous artifacts that are out there, or if there's an artifact creature, you get to kill a creature in addition to it being an artifact. But this is a perfect Sol Ring killer. Just one mana. That's all it takes. get rid of the Sol Ring, done. They'll get one mana back, one life back. What's one life? You know what I'm saying, for them? It doesn't mean anything. But the point is that you hit the Sol Ring or anything else that they're benefiting, any artifact that they're benefiting from or comboing off for, and yeah, you've done them in. Next up is Fertile Ground. This is it has the old enchant land on it, but basically it's an enchantment aura. Whenever enchanted land is tapped for mana, its controller adds one mana of any color to his or her mana pool. So this basically covers white. So let's say I get stuck with 2 greens and I happen to have Fertile Ground. I haven't gotten the plains or any card that can let me tap for white. I could play Fertile Ground and I'll have access to white very easily, as well as any other color if I get stuck with it. This one is Wild Growth. I put the aura tag on there because my cards are very old and a lot of cards have changed over the years. But Wild Growth is straightforward. Whenever enchanted land is tapped for mana, it produces an additional land. You just enchant the land with this, just like Fertile Ground. Great land ramp, good old land ramp. 1 cost, very quick. Primal Rage. This is a card that's been in and out, but I've been wanting to keep this in at all, no matter what, at all costs. Very straightforward to 2 mana enchantment. All creatures you control gain trample. That's it. And given the amount of creatures that I can pile on, this is actually a pretty big deal to have. So that way I can be able to overrun my opponent easily. Next up is Enchantress's Presence. Another one that I've been going back and forth with, because I gave up. What was that card again? It's the one. It's the one where when I play a land, I get a +1/+1 counter on target creature. Something Earth. I completely forgot about it. But the only reason why I chose not to do that is because it relies on landfall, because it's a landfall ability, and it's great and everything. I do recommend it, but I had to favor card drawing for this deck over +1/+1 counters. You know what I'm saying? Like, I got a lot of redundancy on the +1/+1 counters, so I felt that I could afford one. So I dropped the Shattering Earth. I forgot the name of it. It's the one with the bear being overwhelmed by vines, and you get a +1/+1 counter when you drop a land. I dropped that because it relies on lands, and I don't know how often lands don't drop as often as, say, creatures do to get a +1/+1 counter. But Enchantress's Presence is what replaced it. It's very simple and straightforward. Whenever you cast an enchantment, draw a card. So how many times have I had the Enchantress Presence with Sythis out there, and I'm drawing 2 cards at a time? It's crazy. That's what led to Reliquary Tower. Hardened Scales. This was the first card that I put in that gave me the +1/+1 counter boost. Basically, what it does is if one or more +1/+1 counters will be placed on a creature you control, that many +1 +1/+1 counters are placed on it instead. So let's say I put in, I get 1 +1/+1 counter, I get to put another +1/+1 counter. Or if I get to put 2 +1/+1 counters, I get to get 1 additional +1/+1 counters. So I'm hoping you're all catching on here. why I have Kami Transients and a few other cards that's doing that. Because I grabbed this one here. This one is more for the late game, not something you want to play early. You don't want to play this early. This is Primal Vigor with a special art on it. It's an enchantment. What it does is if one or more tokens would be created, twice that many of those tokens are created instead. If one or more +1/+1 counters would be put on a creature, twice that many +1/+1 counters are put on that creature instead. It's a pretty good card. But it's very important to understand that it is a global enchantment. That means that all of your opponents will benefit from it. So I would suggest playing it more on the late game, which is what I have done. I don't play it on the early game. I hold on to it because if I play it too early, everybody, especially decks that have +1/+1, that get counters, any type of counters will benefit from it. I save it more for the late game, but it's definitely a good card to finish that. This elusive card that I had spent weeks trying to get and finally got, Branching Evolution. if one or more +1/+1 counters will be put on a creature you control, twice that many +1/+1 counters are put on that creature instead. This is actually a pretty potent enchantment that I wanted. Most importantly, it only targets my creatures. Nobody else gets the benefit. So if I were, so this is where if I had hardened scales out at the same time, because according to the rules, the rulings, I can choose which order either of these two cards can activate, Hardened Scales or Branching Evolution. The idea is to have Hardened Scales activate first, so I get a +1/+1 counter along with the along with the extra +1/+1 counter, so that's two +1/+1 counters, and then with Branching Evolution that multiplies to 4. So I could drop 4 +1/+1 counters. If I get this going in the late game with Primal Vigor, yeah, that's going to get even more bigger, and my creatures are going to get much more bigger. So now we're going into white. Here, the first legendary enchantment creature, Hyliid Sun Crowned. It's indestructible. As long as your devotion to white is less than 5, Hyliid isn't a creature. Whenever you gain life, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature or enchantment you control. 2 mana, another target creature gains lifelink until end of turn. So now you see why the life gaining is important now. Why I'm trying to get life gaining going here, because like I said, it doesn't really matter because if I gain life, I gain all kinds of stuff. And Hyliid Sun Crown gives all my creatures, well, no, not all my creatures, target creature or enchantment, which means my enchantment creatures can also get that. It's very interesting that it says enchantment. There's a reason why it's specifically saying enchantment rather than enchantment creature. Nevertheless, probably because there's probably some cards that can turn enchantments into creatures, I guess. Oh yes, there is actually. I do have a card that does that. That I do actually have a card that does that. On the contrary, and it's in the deck. But the fact that I can gain life within, turn them into life linkers, the card that you're going to see in this will shock you. So hopefully it'll catch on. Here's the other Hyliid, God of the Sun, indestructible as long as your devotion to white is less than 5. Hyliid is in the creature. Other creatures I control have vigilance, 4 mana, and I could create a 2/1 white cleric enchantment creature token. Enchantment creature token. So it's gonna trigger certain enchantments, which is pretty potent. Pretty good card there. Spirited Companion. I'm looking for. I'm not really interested in playing Spirited Companion. I'm looking for another enchantment creature on white that I could use, and I have an idea of one, if I can ever find it. If I can ever find it, let me show you. And that's this card here. Nyx Fleece Ram. At the beginning of your upkeep, you gain 1 life. It's an enchantment creature. Very 05, great blocker. 2 mana. If I could find Nyx Fleece Ram, I would totally replace Spirited Companion with it. It's a pretty good card, especially because I just gain 1 life every turn on my upkeep. And being that it's an enchantment, it benefits all of the enchantment stuff. And I'm hoping that I can find it, so that way I can play that. But for now, Spirited Companion is pretty much the best practical card I could play with, because the other enchantments are not very good. The other enchantment creatures are very, very bad for this deck. They're probably good in other decks, but not for this deck. But all Spirited Companion does is let me draw a card when it enters the battlefield. That's it. And it's an enchantment creature, so it triggers enchantment effects. Golden Tail Disciple, another enchantment creature, Fox Monk, straightforward life linker. That's it. Just go straight for the attack. Go straight for the attack. If I can find another enchantment creature to replace it, I'm fine with that. But it's okay. It's a 2/3 creature with lifelink. So when it gets the tokens pile on, those +1/+1 counters, yeah, I'll be gaining a lot of life. Goshen Tide of Shared Purpose. Here is the third shrine. Keep that in mind. because I got shrines in here. Legendary enchantment creature shrine, vigilance. At the beginning of my end step, I may pay 1 generic mana, and if I do, I create a 1/1 colorless spirit creature token for each shrine I control. So if I have the other Goshen Tai and Holding of Life's Web out with Goshen Tai, I can make three 1/1 spirit creature tokens. In addition to Holding of Life's Web producing 3 1/1 spirit creature tokens during the upkeep. So it's pretty devastating. Sunblade Samurai. I love this art. I love the art. This is such a wonderful art. I love it. Enchantment creature, Human Samurai. It has vigilance. It has the channel ability. I tap 2 mana and discard the samurai, and I can search my library for a basic plains card, reveal it, and then it gets put into my hand, then shuffle, and I gain 2 life, which is pretty good. It's a pretty good card. So it's very flexible, because if I need a creature, I can play it. If I need mana, I can channel just 2 mana, which is great, and I get life out of it on top of that. And here it is. Remember those +1/+1 counters I was talking about? Nykthos Paragon. Nykthos Paragon. I was determined to get my hands on this. Nykthos Paragon. Enchantment creature, human soldier. Whenever you gain life, you may put that many +1/+1 counters on each creature you control. Do this only once each turn. So yes. If I gain life with the shrines, I get to put that many +1/+1 counters on a creature. If I put it on, whoever, like for example, Sunblade Samurai, I get 2 life. I can put 2 +1/+1 counters. Now, if I have Hardened Scales, I can increase that to 1. If I have Branching Evolution, I could double that to 6. Are you catching on? Are you catching on the theme? Are you shivering? Are the bricks passing through your colon yet? All of you sit there and say, I hate Sythis because they all do the same thing. No, this doesn't do the same thing. This does much worse. Sky Blessed Samurai. He's a 4/4 flying creature. This spell costs 1 less to cast for each enchantment I control. It's an enchantment creature, so if I have a bunch of enchantments, his 6 generic mana will drop steadily, much like Nyxborn Behemoth, and I get a 4/4 flyer. Very easy, very straightforward attacker. Johnny's Pride Mate. This is a regular creature, not an enchantment. Whenever you gain life, put a +1/+1 counter on a Johnny's Pride Mate. So once again, in addition to Nykthos Paragon, if I gain life, and I have the Branch of Evolution and all that, Johnny's Pride Mate will ramp up crazy high. Here's another enchantress to help me with card drawing. Mesa Enchantress, Human Druid. Whenever you cast an enchantment spell, you may draw a card. That's it. Very straightforward. Starfield Mystic, creature, human cleric. What he does is makes my enchantment spells that I cast 1 generic mana less to cast, which is great for mana ramp. Whenever an enchantment I control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, I put a +1/+1 counter on Starfield Mystic. So, yeah. Pretty straightforward, saying whenever, if he's out there and somebody pulls off a creature wipe or whatever, it goes up. And it's preserved. Archon of the Sun's Grace. This one won me my first pod, my very first pod with this deck. It's a creature Archon. Not sure what an Archon is, but it's got flying, lifelink. Pegasus creatures that I control have lifelink. Constellation. Whenever an enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, create a 2/2 white Pegasus creature token with flying, which will also gain lifelink because Archon is out there. So if I have Nykthos Paragon out, and I attack with with these creatures, saying I could very well be able to, especially if they're well pumped up. Saying when if they're pumped up or they can get pumped up, you get what I'm saying. You get what I'm saying. Ondun Spirit Dancer. Weaver of Harmony, this core cleric creature lets me gives me this ability. Whenever an enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, you may create a token that's a copy of it. Do this only once each turn. So I play Sythis, copy Sythis, and it's a and it's what it's a, and you create a token, and it's a token copy of the enchantment. So I bring out Sythis, I copy Sythis. Now I can draw 2 cards and gain 2 life. Nyxborn Behemoth, copy that. Now I have 2 10/10 trampling indestructible monsters coming at you. It's insane. This is the clutch card. I could have ever asked for. I've had this for so long, back in the days. Cataclysm, sorcery speed. Each player chooses from permanents he or she controls an artifact, a creature, an enchantment, and a land, and sacrifices the rest. This is what won me my last pod. Cataclysm, right on the clutch. Everybody, like including myself, had our whole board state and everything. I was 1 commander damage away from losing, and thanks to card draws from Sythis, Cataclysm came to my hand, and I immediately played that, and effectively wiped everybody out except for those 4 specific cards. And that one specific card I kept was Commie of Transience with 12 +1/+1 counters on it. 12 +1/+1 counters on it, and he systematically took out every single opponent. One by one, all 3 got wiped by that one. And then I got the Farewell. This was the first cool rare that I got out of Kamigawa Neon Dynasty. Choose 1 or more. Exile all artifacts, exile all creatures, exile all enchantments, exile all graveyards. So good creature white. It gives me the flexibility I need. So that way I can keep things under control. If I have the enchantment advantage, then I could wipe out the others, except for the creatures, but that's all right. Disenchant, the naturalize of white. Very simple. Destroy target artifact or enchantment. The ever classic, and as you can see, I have the classic card. Swords to Plowshares. Instant speed. Remove target creature from the game. This creature's controller gains life equal to its power. So indestructible cards. Okay, you're exiled. Get out of here. Sigil of the Empty Throne. This one scares people too. It's an enchantment, and what it does is whenever you cast an enchantment spell, create a 4/4 white angel creature token with flying. That's it. So every time I play an enchantment, I get an angel. Boon of the Spirit Realm. This is actually a pretty good, another good card here. It's an enchantment, Constellation. Whenever Boon of the Spirit Realm or another enchantment enters the battlefield under my control, put a blessing counter on Boon of the Spirit Realm. Creatures I control get +1/+1 for each blessing counter on Boon of the Spirit Realm. So all my creatures get a boost. And since I'm always playing enchantments, it ramps up very quickly. So if I get 5 of these, then basically all my creatures get +5/+5 counters. They get a +5/+5 boost, which is very scary if I have Archon on there, and my Pegasus with lifelink all get +5/+5. And yeah. my first victory ended with me having 85 life. That's how powerful Archon is in this deck. Felidar Retreat. I threw that in after I had assessed the situation. This actually is really, really helpful. Landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, choose 1. Create a 2/2 white cat beast creature token, or put a +1/+1 counter on each creature I control, and those creatures gain vigilance until end of turn. This is a very flexible card in this deck here. I've been able to pull out a couple of cat beasts, and then I followed up with +1/+1s while I had the land drops going on. Very, very good. And the vigilance helps out because all my creatures have vigilance, and I don't have to tap them. And here's the last shrine. Honen of Cleansing Fire, which is very weird given that it's white instead of red with a name like that. Legendary enchantment Shrine. At the beginning of your upkeep, you gain 2 life for each shrine you control. So if I get all 4 shrines out, that's 8 life I'm getting. And if I have an And if I have Hilliard out or any of the cards that can produce that, along with branching evolution, it could the number of counters can ramp up extraordinarily fast with Honden of Cleansing Fire, and it happens on the upkeep automatically, no drawbacks. So I can easily spot up 8+1/+1 tokens at the start of my turn on all of my creatures, and I would do it. I would do it. Especially if I have Arcana, then all of my Pegasus will be 9/9 life linking flying creatures. A Johnny's Mantra. At the beginning of my upkeep, I gain 1 life. So yeah, just something that gets it going. Here's Cathars Crusade. Another scary card, much like Nykthos Paragon. Disenchantment: whenever a creature enters the battlefield under my control, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature I control. So again, if say I have Goshen Tai or Honden of Life's Web, and I have 4 shrines out, and I put out 4/1/1 colorless spirit creature tokens, they're gonna trigger Cathars Crusade each time, which means I'll be putting 4 +1/+1 counters on every single creature. And if I have Branching Evolution or any of those cards, that will ramp up even more. I could very well end up dropping 10 +1/+1 counters on everybody. And if I have Arcana with the Pegasus, yeah. 10/10, we're talking 11/11 life linking flying Pegasuses. And if I have 5 of those out, that's, oh gosh, man. True Conviction. Very straightforward. Creatures I control have double strike and life link. Put the Archon out there with those +1/+1 counters. Yeah. any one of the creatures I got, whether they block, attack, no matter what happens, I'll always get life. And if I have Nykthos Paragon out there, I will be giving tokens. Starfield of Nyx. This one is one of 2 solutions to deal with creature wipes, any board wipes, or any destruction. Enchantment: at the beginning of my upkeep, you may return target enchantment card from your graveyard to the battlefield. As long as you control 5 or more enchantments, each other non-aura enchantment you control is a creature in addition to its other types and has base power and base toughness each equal to its mana. So basically, I turn all of my other enchantments like Primal Rage or True Conviction into enchantment creatures. I still don't know what that means in terms of something like Cathars Crusade, if that will trigger the +1/+1 tokens, because if it does, that's insane. Because if I have 5 regular enchantments out and they all become creatures and Cathars Crusade kicks in, that's 5 +1/+1 counters. Especially if I have something like Branching Evolution out. Then we're talking like 10 +1/+1 counters. But they all become creatures. And this also begs the question too. I think that would also trigger Cathars Crusade. If, say, I have an enchantment creature and they're like Goshen Tai, and I bring it back out, it'll probably also trigger it because it's entering the battlefield, as per Cathars Crusade's rules. Mirari's Wake. Green-white, gold, multicolored. Creatures you control get +1/+1. Whenever you tap a land for mana, add 1 mana of any type that land produces. Easy, 2 greens or 2 whites. Or given that it's any land that I'm playing, I can generate whatever I need. 2 extra, good land ramp. This is the first time I've ever played a Planeswalker. Calyx Destiny's Hand. I played that in a special 1v1 matchup, and basically I caused Sauron to be exiled. I exiled my opponent's Sauron, and that was pretty much it. My whole entire board state was overwhelming, and because my opponent couldn't, lost his trump card, I pretty much overwhelmed him. Calyx, legendary Planeswalker Calyx. +1, look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal an enchantment card from among them and put that card into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Basically, Kadama's style reach type of card, but for enchantments. I subtract 3 Exile target creature or enchantment you don't control until targeted creature you control leaves the battlefield. That's what I used on Sauron. Because he was a creature, so I targeted. -7, return all enchantment cards from your graveyard to the battlefield. So yeah, you could get rid of you could board wipe me all you want, but if you don't get rid but if Calyx the Destiny's Hand don't end up in there in that graveyard, all my enchantments are coming out for free. So I have 2 cards that can let me get my enchantment cards back out into the field from the graveyard with no trouble. Then I have his other counterpart, his other card, Calyx Guided by Fate. Legendary enchantment creature, human druid. Constellation, whenever Calyx Guided by Fate or another enchantment enters the battlefield under my control, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. Whenever Calyx or an enchanted creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you may create a token that's a copy of a non-legendary enchantment you control. Do this only once each turn. And now keep in mind this says enchanted creature. That means enchantment aura. So I have to have an enchantment aura on a creature, which I don't have. I don't have any enchantment auras that I can attach to a creature to do that. So I have to rely on Calyx himself to deliver that. So if done right, if I can get it done right, I probably could pull it off, and then I could be able to copy. Let's see here. I could copy any enchantment I control. So I got another way to copy Nyxborn Behemoth or Sythis or anything else that I need for resources. Jukai Naturalist, enchantment creature, human monk. He has lifelink. Enchantment spells I have that I cast cost 1 generic mana less to play. So I can if I get all 3 out, I could reduce the mana cost by 3 generic mana. Great substitute for the medallions, because my Emerald Medallion, Pearl Medallions are in other decks. They're not in this one. Ironroot Warlord. I've been on and off again with him, but the only reason why that I play this creature, Treefolk Soldier, is because aside from the fact that Ironroot's power is equal to the number of creatures I control, which I will have a whole lot of, I can tap for 5 mana, 3 with 1 green and 1 white, and I could create a 1/1 white soldier creature token. I don't know how long I'm really going to keep him. I might bring out the Battle of Britigard, an enchantment saga, which produces tokens and can duplicate 2 tokens after the 3rd chapter of that saga. Time for the artifacts. Commander Sphere, we all know what that does. Add 1 mana of any color of my commander's identity. And I can sacrifice my Commander Sphere for drawing a card. Arcane Signet, staple, another staple. Add 1 mana of any color of your commander's identity, so I could tap for green-white. Spellbook. This is probably going to be something that's on and off again. It depends on the situation, but I do need to have no maximum hand size, and this is actually a free drop. So this will help me out when I have Sythis or the Enchantresses when they're out. And Adelan, when I draw lots and lots of cards, I don't have to worry about hand size. Sensei's Divining Top, very flexible and considered an annoying card for many. Tap 1 mana, look at the top 3 cards of your library, put them back in any order, or I could tap this card, draw a card, and put Sensei's Divining Top on its owner's library. So I gave it a try, and I tapped the Divining Top at the end of my opponent's turn to draw a card, and I put the top back up. So since the top was my first draw, and because I had the Enchantresses out, I was able to play, and I got the draws that the Divining Top denied me. So yeah, it's not bad. Moss Diamond, classic. This is a classic one going way back when. We're talking about 5th edition, probably before 5th edition, probably 4th edition. Moss Diamond, enter the battlefield, tap, and I could tap for green. And I have the other one, the Marble Diamond, where I could tap for white. It enters the battlefield, tap, and I could tap for white. Really good. This one is a big help with my hand size. Thought Vessel, I threw that in automatically when I had the issues, the hand size issues. You have no maximum hand size. Tap and you get a generic mana. So it's Reliquary Tower artifacts version. And finally, everyone's favorite, Sol Ring. I don't think we need an introduction on that. Tap and you get 2 generic mana. So there we go. This is my Sythis Harvest Hand deck, Commander deck. Let's go all the way back and bring Sythis to the top. So improvements. Like I said, I got rid of Uncharted Haven, put in another land card, so that way I could get so I could produce white and green, and not play guessing games like that. There is a card that I want. It was suggested to me by my pod that can help me out and really make my deck even more dastardly, and that is this card. Here we are. Eilish Norn, Mother of Machines. Vigilance. If a permanent entering the battlefield causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. So again, because I have so many triggers in this deck, yeah. One enchantment card can actually triggers multiple abilities, and they will trigger quickly. Thriving Growth, that's the card that I replaced the Uncharted Haven with. They will grow so quickly. It's kind of immeasurable, I guess one could say. My card spilled over. I hate that. You know what? This thing is still struggling in the grand scheme of things. It's the sleeves, if you're wondering. The sleeves are still new, and they still keep falling over because they slide a lot. I still need to do more shuffling to wear it down and make it a little easier. Yeah, let me just put you here. All right, put you here. Let's see here. But yes, as I was saying before this blooper reel happened, Eilish Norn, Mother of Machines, her ability is extraordinarily powerful. It is really great. And what happens is that when I play an enchantment, cards like Sythis, Nykthos Paragon, Mesa Enchantress, they trigger all at the same time, basically. They pretty much trigger simultaneously. And if I'm reading this correctly, and you can comment below if I'm reading it wrong about Eilish Norn, Mother of Machines, but she would, because this one permanent, triggers a permanent I control, causes a triggered ability to trigger, that means that all the triggers would trigger. Because it's not, I don't know if it's a permanent, if it's for each permanent. In fact, is there a ruling? Oh, here we go. We got rulings down here. Yeah, let's read the rulings. Let's read the rulings and make sure we get this right. Eilish Norn's second and third ability each affects a permanent's own enters the battlefield triggered abilities, which is what the majority of my enchantments do, as well as other triggered abilities that trigger when that permanent enters the battlefield. Such triggered abilities start with when or whenever, which I have a whole ton of. Some keyword abilities also include a triggered ability that happens when a permanent enters the battlefield, such as for Mirrodin. Replacement effects are unaffected by Eilish Norn's ability. For example, a creature that enters the battlefield under your control with a +1/+1 counter on it won't receive an additional +1/+1 counter. Abilities that apply, quote, as this permanent enters the battlefield, such as choosing a card type with Stein, Paranoid Partisan, are also unaffected. Eilish Norn's abilities don't look at who controls the permanent entering the battlefield, only who controls the permanent that has the triggered ability. For example, if you control Eilish Norn and a permanent with the ability, whenever a creature enters the battlefield, you gain 1 life, a creature entering the battlefield under an opponent's control will cause that ability to trigger twice. Eilish Norn's first ability doesn't copy the triggered ability, it just causes the ability to trigger twice. Any choices made as you put the ability onto the stack, such as modes and targets, are made separately for each instance of the ability. Any choices made on resolution, such as whether to put counters on a permanent, are also made individually. If you somehow control 2 Eilish Norns, which I don't, that really is irrelevant because I can only play with 1 Eilish Norn. Billie Eilish. I don't know. I'm thinking Billie Eilish all of a sudden. Billie Eilish Norn. If a permanent entering the battlefield at the same time as Eilish Norn, including Eilish Norn itself, causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. Similarly, a permanent entering the battlefield at the same time as Eilish Norn, still including Eilish Norn, won't cause abilities or permanents an opponent controls to trigger. If a triggered ability is linked to a second ability, additional instances of that ability triggered ability are also linked to that second ability. If the second ability refers to the exiled card, quote unquote, it refers to all cards exiled by instances of the triggered ability. In some cases involving linked abilities, an ability requires information about the exiled card, quote unquote. When this happens, the ability gets multiple answers. If these answers are being used to determine the value of a variable, the sum is used. For example, if Elite Arcanist enters the battlefield, ability triggers twice, 2 cards are exiled. The value of X in the activation cost of Elite Arcanist's other ability is the sum of the 2 cards' mana values. As the ability resolves, you create copies of both cards and can cast none, 1 or both of the copies in any order. In the two-headed giant game, Eilish Norn does not affect trigger abilities of permanents your teammate controls. So yeah, there's a lot of rulings to this, but overall, the whole entire point is if I get Eilish Norn and I put her into that deck, basically Sythis is going to be pretty nasty. It's going to be way more nastier than imaginable, because we're talking. Let's see. Let's do a head count. Sythis triggers, Nykthos triggers, Branching Evolution triggers, and they all multiply because they're triggered at the same time. If they're all triggered at the same time, because it doesn't say if it's just one. Yeah, see, own enters the battle triggered abilities as well as the other triggered abilities that trigger when that permanent enters. Such triggered abilities. I don't know. I'm probably gonna have to get the judge's ruling on that. I don't know if it's just one specific permanent or multiple permanents. Because if it's multiple permanents, then yeah. Nykthos Paragon with Branching Evolution triggering twice over, with life linking creatures. Oh my gosh, that's pretty insane. Because as Nykthos Paragon says, whenever you gain life, you may put that many +1/+1 counters on each creature you control. And if I play an enchantment that triggers Sythis, I get to activate that +1. Like I get to activate Nykthos Paragon. Let's see here. So if I have Eilish Norn out, well, let's line this up. We got Eilish Norn here. Let's go to back here. All right. So here's Nykthos Paragon. Here is Sythis, and let's get Branching Evolution here. Here we go. Okay. All right. I don't know if Branching Evolution would trigger, but what we're talking about here is I play an enchantment, Sythis kicks in, I activate Nykthos, and then I double up on Branching Evolution. The question is, does that do all of them double up with Eilish Norn now? If all of them double up, that means that I gain 2 life. Then with Nykthos, I get 2 +1/+1 counters. Let's see here. He's gonna get 2 +1/+1 counters. Let's see, because both of them gonna activate twice. So Sythis would give me 2 life and 2 card draws. So 2 life. Nykthos' ability would activate twice, and they're separate sources, which can only activate once per turn. So if I activate that, that means I get 2 +1/+1 counters on one source, 2+1+1 counters on the other source. Then branching evolution will multiply, will copy again, will also be copied. So those 4+1+1 counters, let's see here, those 2+1+1 counters from each source. Let's see here, two. Yeah, it creates two. They both double up on the first branching evolution, and then that doubles up on the second branching evolution. So that would become 8+1+1 counters for a total of 16+1+1 counters. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments below if I got that right. Please let me know if I got that right. I'm still gonna get Elish Norn no matter what. I'm still gonna get Elish Norn, but I'm hoping that I am explain the chain, that I got the chain right. But I can always go to the magic judge that I know over at the pod this weekend. I can find out about that. But that's the next card I want to get for this deck is Elish Norn, Mother of Machines, so that way I can ramp up those +1+1 counters and those life linking triggers and card dropping triggers and creature building triggers and enchantment triggers. Oh my gosh, there's so much triggers. The deck is very triggering. It's trigger happy. It's a trigger happy deck. So there we go. So I do definitely want to get the Nyx Fleece Ram along with Elish Norn. So that way I can do crazy counter ramps, +1+1 counter ramps and life gaining ramps. Oh, wrong direction. There we go. How's that? Nice and straight. There we go. All right. So that's so basically the way the deck runs. So let me just recap this for all of you. The way the deck runs is is that I run a bunch of triggers, whenever triggers, if then statement triggers, and produce creatures, life gains, and +1+1 counters. Those are the three avenues. Those are the three sources that is focused on. So basically, I can create creature tokens, and then they can get +1+1 counters. If I gain life, it produces +1+1 counters. It puts onto the creatures. If I play enchantments, that triggers +1+1 counters, or any life gains, that triggers +1+1 counters. Basically, it's all about getting those +1+1 counters on all these triggers, from life gaining to creatures, land drops, and so on. Roaring Earth, I think that's the name of the card. Roaring Earth. That was the that's the landfall card that I took out of the deck in favor of card drawing Enchantress. Yep, Roaring Earth. Landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1+1 counter on target creature or vehicle you control. Channel. X generic mana, 2 green. Discard Roaring Earth. Put X +1+1 counters on target land you control. It becomes a 0/0 green spirit creature with haste. It's still land. So yeah, that's the card I dropped in favor of Enchantress Presence. I still would like to put that card in there, but I think the redundancy for +1+1 counters is sufficient, and life gaining and card drawing redundancy was definitely needed, and it actually made the difference in terms of me getting the cards out. So yeah, that is basically Sythis Horror's Hand. It is a +1+1 counter generator. It's all about generating +1+1 counters from multiple sources, and then smacking my opponents with +1+1 counter buffed life linking, trampling, double striking creatures. And if they may have reach, they may have flying, they may have lifelink. They could be almost anything, and they will be coming in swinging hard, along with supplemental abilities like copying trigger abilities. So yeah, Elish Norn, I want that. Alright, so thank you all for joining me. Like I said, comment down below what you think of Sythis. The deck, does that combo, did I get the combo right with Elish Norn, and so on. Thank you for those comments too down below. So with all that said, I wish you all a good night, a buenas noches, and oyasumi nasai.